Hey, this is Chadlack with the Cage Rage Podcast, and you are live with us. Welcome to the show. Guys, I'm way off camera. Probably should have had that fixed before we started. Sorry, guys. Hey, I'm here with fight analyst McGill Iterati from down south, and from up north, Devin Miller. What's going on tonight, guys? We're talking UFC, right?
Yeah, it's going good, Chad. Out here on the road, I'm sitting in Pennsylvania right now. You got me in Pennsylvania, you in Indiana, and Miguel down there in Costa Rica. So we're hitting you from all over the continent right now.
We are a roving reporter on the road show. That makes us the real deal, folks.
Well, I used to live in Pennsylvania, and I did probably 60 MMA shows in Indiana, so taking a little bit of the Midwest down south with me here.
Where men are men and sheep are nervous. So, hey, we've got UFC 239 this weekend. On top of that, we've got Fight Week. So it's going to be a huge deal. They'll do some Hall of Fame stuff. Does Clay Guida does he make the Hall of Fame this weekend? Is that when they do the introduction, or I don't know how that works.
They didn't put Guida in the main event. They put that fight in the Hall of Fame.
Oh, okay.
Between Sanchez and Guida as one of the, I guess they have like a greatest fights section of the UFC Hall of Fame, and they inducted that. But I'm not sure that I think that it's already been done. If not, I don't know. I'm not sure when that's going to officially be made.
Okay, well, either way, Diego's fighting this weekend. I can't wait for that fight. I'm looking forward to that fight as much as any fight on the card. But let's start at the top. So, Devin, take us from the top. Bones Jones, what's going to happen? Talk to me about this fight.
Well, as reporters here, which we don't shy away from doing commentary and delving into conspiracies and hyperbole and all this sorts of stuff, but we do got to try to take emotion out when we talk about Jon Jones, because he is going to be a factor. There's a good chance we are going to have to be dealing with him for another decade. We've already dealt with him for a decade. He's still a pretty young man. He's still in his early 30s. So I think that we've got to get used to dealing with him to a degree. But this weekend it's kind of similar to what we just saw in his last title defense against Anthony Smith, where he's going to be a heavy favorite. We knew that pretty much right now. It's going to be that way with Jon Jones against anybody except for maybe DC or maybe like a Francis or a Stipe at heavyweight. But what I will say, and I'm working on editing a video that I'm going to release on this subject on Thiago Santos, since he is the big challenger this weekend, is I would say that he meets the criteria of the type of fighter that I would say has a chance. I don't think
I agree.
He's not technically anywhere near Jon Jones. He's not physically even as near Jon Jones. Jon Jones could make middleweight. Thiago Santos did fight at middleweight. But if there's something that you got to look at when you look at Thiago Santos, you got to look at, this is a guy who anybody's ever seen him fight, he's a sprint right out of the bat a lot of times. He puts a lot of pressure on guys. He's willing to take a lot of risks. He throws a lot of different techniques, and he doesn't hesitate to pull the trigger, and he's got a lot of power. You put that combination together of somebody that's known for throwing various techniques, has a lot of power, and isn't afraid to pull that trigger, you might have an issue with Jones. And I've always said that the only person that's going to be able to beat Jones is somebody that's not super orthodox, because he's got to be thrown off his rhythm. If he gets in a rhythm, he's going to light up everybody. I mean, nobody's going to come close. He's going to read their timing. He's going to be able to set them up for various techniques. He's a master at slowing the pace and getting people mesmerized and standing in front of him. That's why Anthony Smith was so frustrated with his performance, because he couldn't really do anything. I'm not sure that he's going to be able to do that with Thiago Santos. I think he's going to have to fight, which could mean Santos goes out early, gets choked out, gets taken down. I think that's where he's going to be the most vulnerable, is if Jones gets on top of him. But I do think that he's going to look he doesn't have really anything to lose, and I think he's going to push the pace on Jones and really try to hit him with something hard. So a lot of other people have tried that same game plan, though. So
Miguel, Jones has stated publicly that he wishes he were more worried or concerned or nervous about this fight. Do you see this as being a weakness for Jones and the possibility that maybe he really isn't taking this seriously enough because he really does feel like he's that much better?
No, I think he's too smart. And at this point, he's been around long enough that I don't think summing it up with simplicities like that is enough here. I think what's going to come into play, I think, is if we're at the point in time where it's John Jones's turn, whether it be because of complacency or because Thiago Santos has a magic moment. The bottom line is he's a minus 600 favorite. That's massive. That's about half of what Anthony Joshua was to Andy Ruiz Jr. So we've recently seen an upset that would be, mathematically double the odds there already. So you have to say it's possible, right? I like what Santos brings in that he doesn't seem all that nerve, like there's something about the respect Jones gets before the fights, even with the Smith fight, they were both kind of respectful of each other and stuff like that. And that may have been the start of Smith's downfall right there. Is just to played into the mind game. You know what I mean? And in this case, I don't think Santos has that much. Santos knows he's an underdog, but Santos is of the mindset where he's gonna try to kill anybody. You know what I mean? Or try to beat anybody. It doesn't matter. It's John Jones. He doesn't get as intimidated. I think the respect. I think he's bringing the right. Veneer to this fight. Like I think Devin made an accurate read that you got to say he's got a chance just because looking at everything, you got to give him credit for bringing as complete a package as you can. The problem is you're facing a wall there. You know what I mean? So what is Jones bringing? Yeah, maybe he's complacent, or maybe it's just his moment. He sticks his chin out and he gets caught.
Yeah, so okay, so we all kind of agree that
I have
Jones could get caught and get knocked out, right?
Well, I have one question. Which I mentioned the Andy Ruiz, so we can say that would be the knockout, right? So a knockout would obviously be a big surprise. But what about something like a possibility of something like Fabrizio Verdun did to Fedor, and that is catch him quick and get him out of there. Submit him if he makes. I mean, Jones doesn't make mistakes, right? But pull guard, catch a triangle, and who knows how it goes. Which do you think? Well, I think the puncher's chance is more likely here than the submitter's chance. I don't know if it's submitter's chance or what you say, but yeah, they're a little more. Santos has a little more options, but I don't know if that plays in his favor in this fight.
I mean, do you think Santos? I mean, the guy looks like a freaking human anatomy chart. He just looks with the hammer, the Thor hammer and all that. He looks really super, super strong. But when we see him standing face to face with Jones, all of that's going to change, and you're going to you're going to see that recede, and I think you're going to see, like you said, he has the right veneer, but I think that veneer is going to wear off really quickly when the bell rings, and he catches one of those inside thigh kicks, and Jones comes out there, Santos comes across hard, Jones just whack, and heel kicks him in the thigh one time, and it stops, and then game over, and just like Devin said, the whole fight slows down then, and it's Jones's pace. He sets it and he does what he wants. I would love to see Jones get his head knocked off, but I don't see that as being the case. But I guess if anybody can do it, maybe this is the one.
One thing I will say about these two that is just very noticeably different between both of them, and that I really think is that next level, is, and I was talking to Amanda a little bit about this on our controversial John Bones Jones podcast, because I let her just lay into him with everything she had to say about him, and that's what I kind of wanted to bring out in it because I knew she would articulate it well. But one thing I did kind of get to manage to throw in there is that John Jones, between John Jones, GSP, and Mighty Mouse, are the three most fluid fighters I've ever seen. They're they're just so consistent. For 5 rounds, they do not slow down. They're constantly, even in the second Daniel Cormier fight, when Daniel did seem to start getting kind of off on him in those first couple rounds, and in the first Gus fight when Gus was really finding his range, Jones never took a minute off in that round. He was in that fight. He was still consistent. He was still attacking. He was still getting. I mean, it took him a little bit longer to get his rhythm, but once he does, man, and once he falls into that rhythm, he's just so. You could just tell that it's just he's got this pace that he's gonna set from the opening bell, and he can speed it up at times. He can slow it down at times. Thiago Santos, what worries me about him is he just knows forward. And what we did see against Jan Blachowicz in his last fight, a big knockout win, that is impressive with Santos. Santos can knock you out going backwards. He knocked Blachowicz out literally going backwards.
Yeah.
The thing is, John Jones is not going to go charging at him. John Jones is going to plant his strikes. He's going to find his range. And if Santos comes off overly aggressive, he's going to try to tie him up a lot like he did Glover in their fight, where John Jones played a very heavy clinch game against a prime Glover, where he kept clinching him against the cage with those long arms and turning over nice elbows on the inside, almost dirty boxing with elbows and knees. It was very impressive. And he was able to just really break Glover down, and anytime they were at range, he picked him apart with his length and with his range that he does so well, attacking the body, attacking the knee with those teep kicks, attacks the body. He throws out good strikes to the head. He does those inside leg kicks. He'll come up high if you're not paying attention. He's a hard man to beat, man, and he's really hard to hit. He's really hard to. If he gets on top of you, you almost never get up. It's he's a mountain for anybody. That was a good way to put it, Chad. He's a mountain, but Thiago, I think, needs to come out strong and get that rhythm off quick and just stay in his face. But,
yeah, I don't think there's any other way.
Yeah, there's not.
What other opportunity does he have? Is he going to stand outside of Jones and teep back and forth with him? I mean, see that's the thing with Jones that I think that's the most underrated thing that he does. People talk about, oh, Jones' striking is so precise. He's this mental chess player. His submissions are fantastic. He has the length so that his arms are so long that when he gets the guillotine in, it really crushes the windpipe. And none of that is really what wins Jones fights. What wins Jones fights is exactly what Devin said, was that he sets the pace, and he sets the pace with the teeth. He does that inside heel kick to his opponent's left, to his opponent's right thigh, usually, whack. And when he does that, he automatically slows the charge down. No matter how hard you're charging, no matter how hard you think you're going to come in and fast, he's going to whack. And when he does that, man, if Thiago comes in and he catches that and he knocks Jones back because he's just so strong and such a brute, then maybe we have something different. And he lays out a 5-piece against the cage when Jones kind of bounces against the cage and comes back and pop, 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 pop. And maybe Jones goes down and he's out. We could see that, but you sure as hell aren't going to see that in the rematch either way. So if Thiago, so let's do this. Santos, I don't think Santos wins, but if he does, we know that there's a rematch and Jones wins the rematch pretty much hands down, right? So let's do our pick. What are you guys calling on this fight? Give me a round and a style. What happens? Miguel, you go first.
I always take a wait and see attitude, just because every fight's got a couple of different paths it can go down. If Thiago's able to maybe get his attention in the first round, you might have a different fight than if he doesn't gain any respect and Jones is able to set the pace and do what he wants. So I do see that. One thing I do think is if a shorter fight favors Thiago, the more you're in there with Jones, you may have power throughout 5 rounds. You may be able to, but the more you're in there with Jones, you're going to be taking punishment. You're going to be taking, attritive damage, and you're in a situation there in this case where they've already lined up face to face. It's one of those jobs where Jones is clearly looking down on him. You know what I mean? So he's bigger, and it's going to be. It's not. Santos is going to have a real hard time getting in, maybe not getting damage and getting out. So I could see it being a long fight. I don't think Jones is going to come in and try to take it out fast. I think he's accustomed now to dragging a fight out and making it longer. So we'll see. That may also play into Thiago's advantage. One mistake and there it goes. But I think Jones has been too precise. I think the fact is Thiago brings a nice complete package. But again, with the physicality and stuff like that, Jones. Yeah, it's hard to pick against Jones.
Yeah, Devin, what do you think?
I think Jones will drag this out a little bit. I think that Thiago will come out with kind of a frantic sprint-like pace, but I think that Jones will be too smart. I think he'll tie him up too much. I think that he'll keep his range too well. And I think as soon as this, I do think that Jones is going to be under some pressure. Not much, because he does what he wants to do, and he's proven so much already that I don't think he has really much to answer for, other than his outside the cage controversies. But I do think that he's going to want to get Thiago out of here, because he didn't get Anthony out, and I think he kind of played with his food with Anthony too, because I think he really liked Anthony.
Yeah.
Anthony was somebody that really gave him a lot of respect going in when a lot of people won't. But he got Gus out of there in 3 rounds, and I would argue Gus is a much more championship round style fighter than what Thiago Santos is. I'm not sure Thiago Santos is going to survive when he starts getting tired, when his movements, when he's not able to push forward, when he's getting backed up. I think that he's going to start caving in a little bit, and I'm going to go with Jones submitting him in the 3rd round with probably like a rear naked choke or just pounding him out maybe. I think he's going to get him to the ground. I think as soon as he wears him down, slows the pace, he'll take him to the ground, kind of like he did Gus in the 2nd fight in the 3rd round, and then at that point, I don't think Thiago's going to get back up.
I'm going to go just a little bit different on this one and kind of throw caution to the wind. And I'm going to say that Jones takes him out in the 1st round via choke, because I think it's the kind of thing where Thiago could come in and he could rush and Jones could actually set that up, maybe even, rope-a-dope him just a little bit, bring him in, get him up against the cage, get his underhooks in, turn him, put the guillotine in, choke him out, and be done. And I think he would kind of like to do that, just because I think he wants to show people, I can finish you any way I want to, at any time I want to. And yeah, maybe last time I took too long, and I want people to be really excited because this is fight weekend. I will say this, though. If there's anything that's going to beat Jones in this fight besides a really lucky punch, obviously, it's going to be a piss test after the fight.
What are the odds for that? Yeah, I know.
Yeah, I mean, he's lost more, or he should have lost more than. So anyways,
those odds are closer than Thiago Santos winning.
Yeah. So okay, so we move down to what could arguably be, and we don't know yet that it won't be, actually, because let's face it, we don't know if Jones, if he has a dirty drop yet, and if he has a dirty drop in Nevada, they don't tolerate that, and so picograms with him, they could say peekaboo, picograms, you're out of here, you're not fighting, and in that case, Amanda Nunes moves up to the spot where I think she should probably be anyway, which is the main card. She's champ. She's done enormous things in the industry, but she's fighting Holly Holmes. And so, Miguel, take that one away. I'll hold mine until after you guys are done, because I kind of know where you're at with stuff. But tell us about Holmes and Nunes then.
I'm a Holly Holm fan. I think when you look at her, and I've watched her, since she's been professional boxing and things like that. I think she's impressive. I think she is, I think she is one of those fighters that meets the threshold of just being a fighter. You don't even have to qualify her as a woman fighter or girl fighter or anything like that. Her techniques are there. She's in both sports. She's been a real warrior. So I think she presents Amanda's toughest challenge because, especially in the situation here where you gave her 3 months to prepare, that's right in Holly Holm's wheelhouse is to come in with a game plan. Now, against Justina where she lost, what Holm doesn't have is she doesn't have, maybe the takeout power or the saturating power that Amanda had and stuff, but she certainly showed that she could stay away from that kind of power. And I think that's what makes it an interesting fight because Amanda's going to have to show more than she's shown in her 2 big fights. It's okay, for Amanda to call herself the GOAT and, for the champ thing to be like that. I think that's all fantastic and good. But Ronda Rousey and Christina Justino were basically easy fights for her. And what the fact is with Rousey and with Justino, it didn't have to go that way. You got to give Nunes full credit for making the fight go that way. But I think there's going to be a little more sophistication in Holmes' game where she won't be susceptible to that type of fight. If she comes out and wipes out Holmes the way she did the other 2, put her on Mount Rushmore.
Well, I would argue right now when it comes to Nunes, as for women's MMA, she's already the GOAT, and there's no way to even go around it and when I look at this fight, the first thing that stands out to me is they got 4 common opponents and 4 completely different results. They've both fought Miesha Tate, they've both fought Germaine de Randamie, they've both fought Valentina Shevchenko, and they've both fought Chris Cyborg. And well, they've actually got 5 common opponents. One of them they both beat in Ronda Rousey. Got to remember that. But when you look at the first 4 I mentioned, Nunes has a win over de Randamie. Nunes has 2 wins over Shevchenko. Nunes knocked out Cyborg. And Nunes flattened Miesha Tate in just a couple minutes. Holly Holm lost all 4 of those girls. So that's the first thing that stands out to me in this fight. And I don't want to sound disrespectful when I made that video that I just made about Holly Holm, and I titled it "The Buster Douglas of MMA" with a question mark. That's not me being disrespectful to Holly Holm because I believe she's a lot better than that. I think that she's a very elite fighter, and something Miguel said right there that I definitely agree with is that I think her defense is her strongest point. She's got that. She's been a professional boxer. She knows how to roll with punches. She's not getting knocked out. She's not getting dropped. I think she arguably won the de Randamie fight. The Shevchenko fight, she was doing well until the later rounds, and that was really before anybody really knew who Shevchenko was. Cyborg, she hung tough with, but just didn't have the firepower. My biggest issue with Holm, which I do think this fight will go to a decision, just for the record. I think she'll lose. I'm going to go with Nunes on it. But my biggest issue with Holm in MMA has always been I feel like she's too accustomed to like a 12-round boxing fight because she just doesn't pull the trigger enough. She doesn't fight with enough hesitation. Nothing like she did against Ronda Rousey. Against Ronda Rousey, she was countering brilliantly, but a lot of that had to do with Ronda Rousey was coming at her like a freight train, straight forward, and just walking into strikes. I mean, head straight up in the air. None of her striking techniques were crisp at all. She was so used to just being able to take whatever girls threw at them, cut their movement off, grab a hold of them, and take them down in the clinch. And the first time she got in there with a girl that she could not do that with, who was countering her with crisp, hard strikes as she's moving straight forward into them and cutting angles and not letting her get a hold of them and circling off a clinch really well, she had no answer. It just exposed how much of a big fish in a little pond Ronda Rousey was. She was not that great of an MMA fighter. I said that that she wasn't even that good of a takedown artist. Everybody kept arguing with me about that. She didn't have no blast double leg. She didn't have any, real good single leg. She didn't even really mix up her techniques. She literally came forward with her head straight up in the air, throwing bombs with her hands that were sloppy and untechnical with her chin straight up in the air, and was able to grab a hold of girls and outmuscle them. And she looked like she just was so much more physical than all the fighters she fought. Holly Holm, and I feel like when Holly's in there with girls that are just as technical as her, and just as smart and just as seasoned as her, she sometimes doesn't pull the trigger enough. And that's been my biggest criticism of her. That's what I worry about with Amanda Nunes.
Okay, did you have something to say, Miguel?
Yeah, no, with all due respect, wrestling's not the only takedown art. I mean, the girl's a judo bronze medalist, and, it is judo that she brought to the table, and she did, showed far and away more proficiency than anyone else that we've seen in judo, so I tend to give her takedowns a little bit more credit than Devin did, but other than that, I don't disagree with him. I think I picked Nunes for the fight as well. The problem here is, you always get, the fact is it's almost lined up perfectly here for that, hey, A beats B, so B beats B, so see that whole thing. It's almost set up for Holm to win this fight, right? And at the end of the day, no matter what, this fight starts standing, and Holm will take her chances with anyone that way. So, so we'll see how it goes. If it turns into a boxing match and Nunes doesn't bring some of the other wrinkles and stuff for whatever reason, Holm manages the pace a little bit, she'll probably lose. In that case, Holm will probably lose the judge's decision because of the inactivity at times, the inability to pull the trigger. But should she be able to do that, Nunes would have a mountain to climb.
Yeah. Okay. So here's what I'm going to say about it. I'm picking Holmes on this, and I might be the only one. It sounds like Miguel's picking her too. So I'm picking Holmes on this, and I have from the moment they announced the fight. Excuse me. And here's why. Holly has the same teep that John Jones has, and I think you could see a really similar fight back to back, because Holly's able to rather than throw a forward teep, she throws that side long kick, but her legs are so long that her reach on Amanda is going to be vastly different on her legs. I was looking for their actual arm reach, and I couldn't find it quickly enough, so I just kind of abandoned mission. But here's what I think is going to happen. Number one, the one thing that I think everybody forgets is that in Holly Holmes' corner is going to be, in my opinion, the greatest MMA coach that there is, and that's Greg Jackson. And he's going to be in the corner. He's going to be telling Holly what to do. He's going to be making adjustments as they go. And I think Amanda's going to come in, and Amanda sort of expects she's going to hit people and they're going to fall down. Holly doesn't necessarily fall down when she gets hit, because she's hard to hit because she's so long. She's tall. Her shoulders are broad. She's very strong. She's got strong hips. She's got great placement. She's a tall person. And so, and she's a professional boxer and kickboxer. Amanda is a professional MMA fighter. And I think if Holly plays that right, Amanda will try to come in and take her down. And I think we could see Amanda gas. And I think we could see Holly take her out in the late rounds. I think it'll probably go to a decision. If it does, I think it goes Amanda's way, simply because the way Holly fights for a decision, she fights to hang on and stay in rounds and maybe sneak around here or there. And so maybe it goes 3-2 Holly's way, and we can see about that. I don't think we see any rounds where Amanda comes in and just bum rushes Holly and she gets a 10-8 round. So I don't think we have to worry about that. But we could see Holly steal this in a decision from stealing an extra round that they didn't think she stole, or it could be controversial, whatever. But Greg Jackson's in her corner, and he's going to be making adjustments that no one else knows how to make, and that's just a fact. I mean, you can argue it if you want to, but Greg Jackson's an amazing coach, and he's just got a brilliant mind. And Holly listens to him perfectly. Like almost like a dog whistle. She obeys his every order, and I think we're gonna see Holly. Okay, I'm just gonna say it. I think Holly's gonna finish her late because I think Amanda's gonna get tired.
I will say this about Holly. I do think that she's going to be coming into this fight understanding that she's nearing the end of her career and that she's already got some losses on her record and that she's going to need to fight with a little bit more urgency. And I do agree with you about Greg Jackson. I'm not sure anybody who's really followed MMA is going to argue with you about the merits of Greg Jackson as a corner man, as a coach. What him and Mike Winklejohn have had going on down there in New Mexico for a long time is exceptional. They've produced a lot of talent over the years for sure, and been in the corners of everybody from Cerrone to Sanchez to GSP to John Jones to Holly Holm, Michelle Watterson. I mean, the list goes on and on. But so I do think she's going to have to fight with some urgency, but I would be definitely telling her that she better be ready to use Amanda Nunes' aggression against her.
Yeah.
The best thing Holly Holm has going for her, she's an excellent counter striker. And she does know how to counter and cut off angles very well. The problem is that if Amanda starts, because Amanda's going to probably be coming in really confident, knowing that she just ran through Cyborg the way she did, and that she's been up to 45, she's going back down to 35. She's trusting her power. She's got that broad back. She's got huge firepower in both fists. Amanda Nunes does and has for a long time. So she's going to be confident in that. Holly Holm has got to get her to respect her early because Amanda's going to come for her. And if Holly can get her to respect her early and to respect that you're not just going to come in at me, winging shots, I'll counter you, I will crack you. At that point, it becomes a more measured fight. And at that point, Holly does have a chance. Only if she's willing to get in there and fight. She's got to throw her techniques. She can't just be key-eyeing and throwing her same 1-2 high kick and just circling back off and resetting. No, she's got to follow up with those combinations. She's going to have to stay in Amanda's face. She's going to have to constantly, every time Amanda throws that power at her, she's going to have to make her pay. It's a mountain of a fight for both of them. I think Amanda's big problem is going to be adjusting, picking her shots, picking when to use her power. And it wouldn't surprise me if she tries to take it down because she's got an excellent ground game too. So I just the reason I lean toward Amanda, and I'm not discrediting Holly. I think she's easily one of the best women fighters on the planet. The reason I lean toward her is those Shevchenko fights. Shevchenko, I believe, is. We've seen it, man. I mean, Shevchenko might have more of a firm hold on her division than any fighter in the UFC right now. And we know how good she is. It's been shown how good she is when she's not fighting Amanda Nunes. And she arguably won the second fight with Amanda Nunes in a very close fight. In the first fight, Amanda Nunes clearly won. It was only a 3-round fight. She clearly won the first 2 rounds. But in that third round, Shevchenko won it, and she was pulling away. And I remember saying, man, if this was a 5-round fight, it'd be Shevchenko's fight all day. Because that was back when Nunes did tend to have a gas tank issue. She's kind of corrected that over the years. But I wonder if she's gotten so fixated on her power and getting back to her roots where she loves to throw that power, is that going to maintain for 5 rounds? I think it could possibly be a problem, but Holly, the key to this fight is Holly's got to make her pay. Holly has got to get her respect and has got to actually be cracking Amanda in those first couple rounds and make this a fight. She can't just try to go tit for tat. And if she tries to do that and is hesitant to pull the trigger, I think it'll just be another just so decision loss for Holly that she's going to be kicking herself for the next several months. So that's my best analysis I can give on this fight.
So we drop down. Go ahead, Devin.
Well, I titled this on my video I posted tonight as "This is the people's main event."
I agree with that.
I think that this is honestly going to be the fight people are going to be the most looking forward to. Is Ben Askren versus Jorge Masvidal. They're both coming off. Askren, career winner. Olympic level wrestler, collegiate All-American, highly decorated wrestler. He's undefeated in MMA. The former ONE FC champion, the former Bellator champion, comes in, makes his Octagon debut, gets a controversial win over Robbie Lawler, has been out there on all the media talking and, making a name for himself. And here you got the total opposite with Masvidal, a fighter's fighter, a guy who grew up on the streets of Miami, fighting in backyards, didn't have that structured, born, prestigious type of thing that Askren has going for him. He fought his way up the hard way, the blood and guts type of way, where he took some L's, had his ups and downs and stuff, but he's constantly gotten better from them. And if you look at a lot of his record in the UFC, you're going to see there's one thing on his losses that stick out the most, and it's SB, split decision.
Yeah.
A lot of his losses have been very close decisions. This man is literally inches on certain fights from having a completely different MMA career. And by completely different, I mean champion.
He's got the same Holly Holm bug that he can't pull the trigger at times.
Yeah, but I think he's kind of corrected that with his knockouts over Till, which I think was his defining moment so far. His knockout over Cerrone. This man went 3 rounds with Damian Maia basically on his back, and got a split decision on that fight. They gave it to Maia, but one judge had it for him, and it was a fight that Damian Maia had him in a lot of grappling scenarios. So don't tell me that he can't hang if Askren is able to get a hold of him. The problem is with Askren. There's a great, brilliant breakdown that I encourage people to go look up that Cruz and that Dominic Cruz and Paul Felder did for ESPN, where Cruz was demonstrating that Ben Askren will throw like a lazy kick and doesn't care if he grabs a hold of it, because he'll jump guard and then just try to create a scramble just to get a hold of Masvidal. That's how he's always fought. He tries to create sloppy scrambles because he knows he's so good. If he just gets a hold of him, he can get this fight into a dominant position. So Masvidal is going to have to fight this fight extra smart. He's going to have to try to keep it off. But I'm going to say right here before I hand it off to Miguel, I'm calling the upset on this. I have it in my gut. I think that there's a lot of experience here. I think that Masvidal is going to be a little bit more driven than what Robbie Lawler really does have sometimes a problem pulling the trigger. He didn't seem like he did against Askren, but it was so evident in that Lawler fight in the few minutes that we got to see of it. Askren's entire MMA game is just not there. He is a pure wrestler. He was so outgunned in the striking department. I'm not sure he's going to be able to. I think this might be quick. I think Masvidal honestly might drop him quick. I'm going Jorge Masvidal to win this.
Miguel, you know a little more about George. You basically started his career. His first pro fight was with the AFC in Florida when he was doing backyard fighting. He came in, if I remember right, at the weigh-ins. His parents had to be there or something like that because he was 17, or what was the deal on that?
I don't think that was him.
But there was something like that, but. Yeah, but I mean,
I know George for a long time, like you said, and I mean the bottom line is he's always had talent, and yeah, the street stuff is all real because he would show up at shows, with some shady characters and stuff, but inside he does have discipline, because you don't get that good on the ground, that good on the feet, and smart about what he's doing because he was looking to mix it up, and he went from the Avalon Brothers and the ATT for more complete training and. I give him a lot of credit. The thing with George is that time has passed, and George has been doing this for so long that you get that's why you get to a record that what is he 29-10 or 29-11 something like that.
Yeah.
So that's how you get 10 losses is because you've been doing this for your entire adult life. The time is now, George. This is the one that you can't lose. It's okay to lose. To Rafael Asuncion on a smaller show, that put Asuncion on the map and stuff like that. And, I remember a seminal fight for him under me was when he beat Eve Edwards. And Eve Edwards is a UFC champion level guy.
God, that was a great fight. High kick.
Yeah, and he beat Eve, and I remember Eve actually crying after the fight and be like, I think that's the first fight he lost under me, So yeah, but that was a test fight for George,
Yeah.
and he passed that test. Now this is the test. That was a small test on what is now in retrospect a historical or small show. This is the test. This is the one that you'll be a millionaire after the next fight, So he really has to go ahead and seize the moment, and with that, he does have the talent. And now what makes him dangerous is he still has some youth, and he has he's a guy that this was his sport, basically. He's not a wrestler crossover, so we'll see if that makes a difference. I think Devin is not going to be the only one that picks here. I gotta, that's the question that George has to answer. I've seen at times where George, thinks he won a fight that, he took a loss in. And, comes out, even in some losses, unscathed, I mean, I can't think of too many guys who definitively stopped him. Maybe Toby Amada, caught him in that beautiful reverse triangle that in Bellator at one point. But he's really hard to stop and stuff. And Damian Maia and him going to the ground, the Avalon brothers are no joke on the ground. So I'm not surprised that they wouldn't get submitted by Damian Maia. I mean, he's that good. He's a good, but not pulling the trigger in fights, and, taking 10, 11 losses, you become accustomed to. He's got to realize that this is the one. This is the one you can't lose, George. This is the one you can't lose. If he goes in with that urgency, then he can really make it a test. And he's going to have to. The thing that worries me about Askren is that Askren is one of those guys. I remember I've had it happen with two other fighters, Henry Matamoros and Trevor Pranglin. Both guys, a doctor told me, goes, those guys have extremely thick skulls, like abnormally, like that's not normal for a human being. They're much thicker skulled than people. I remember Trevor, remember Casey Uscola hit Trevor, and he goes, I hit him with the best punch I've ever hit anybody, right in the jaw, bam, in the fight. And Trevor went, he goes, I knew I lost that minute, But I think Askren is one of those guys with a freaking just a skull that the first shot Lawler hit him with, and then not going out and being left like, go back in UFC history. If you remember Orlando Veit, remember when he got hit by those elbows from Renko Pardo, and he was out. After Lawler dropped Ben Askren on his head, he should have been out. And he wasn't.
I thought so too. I thought so.
It's the fight. You know what I mean? So I think George is going to have to use technique and wear him down, and use an accumulation of punches, because I don't know. Maybe that last time Lawler dropped Askren on his head, that was the last time, and after that he'll be a little weaker, maybe more susceptible, it's not a chin, but similar to the chin kind of thing. But if that's not the case, then George's got to mount the climb and knock that guy out. That's tough.
See, one thing I think that Masvidal definitely has going for him is you can just look at Askren's performances. Number one, he's not really evolved, and number two,
not at all.
He does not transition well from striking to wrestling. He's a fantastic wrestler.
He doesn't.
He gets a hold of you. If he can get a hold of you, he's really well. But he does not time his takedowns well. He doesn't transition with strikes well. It's like he has never even tried to train that. He's just been so confident. It's been so confident in what he does. He is great on the mat. He's a great wrestler that's translated that type of skill set over to the grappling department, and he can pass guard well. He submits people well. He's good at transitioning on the ground. He's actually good off the back. He'll create scrambles from his back and take people down from him. So I think that he's a little slow, and I think that'll work in Masvidal's favor. The one thing that Askren does have going for him in this fight, it's only a 3-round fight. So Masvidal is going to have to fight with a little bit of urgency. And I would, as you said, I do think that Askren does have a thick skull. I mean, this man's been in there with Douglas Lima. I mean, he's been in there with some good guys, Koreshkov, Robbie Lawler. So it's not like he hasn't fought anybody that's a good striker. He's fought good guys. I think Masvidal not only needs to headhunt, but he needs to go to the body too. The problem is setting up strikes, worrying about that clinch. But I still think that he's going to be a lot faster than what people think, and I think he's gonna set it up a little bit better than what Robbie Lawler did.
Okay, so I'm just gonna jump in and say this: Masvidal is going to be much, much faster than Lawler was. He's not going to bring quite as much power, but he's going to pity pat him, and he's going to hit him a lot. As long as George keeps his feet on the floor, doesn't get stupid, and go for some high kick or something like that. Keep your feet flat on the floor. Keep your distance. Use your reach, and make Askren come in and search for you with his head down, getting beat on the whole time. George is probably going to break his hand at some point in this, but George has fought with broken hands before. I think George beats him, and I think he beats him in 3 rounds. The only way he does it is if Askren gets a takedown in every round. And believe me, that's what he's going to be looking for. Askren is going to say, I need a takedown in every round, and as long as I do that, I'm going to beat George, and I'm on to the next thing. The other thing I think that Askren has against him that I think Miguel nailed it is that George has, Askren doesn't, because it's not like Dana's going to cut Ben Askren if he loses this fight. He's good for the game. You know, he's a good draw. He's only been here 2 times, and he's already 3rd main event. You know, I mean, he's looking great. And the Lawler fight was exciting. It was controversial. He did all the right things afterwards. He talked smack. He's super smart. He reminds me a lot of a young Chael Sonnen, except he's not that young. The one thing that he hasn't taken a lot of abuse because of the people that he's fought. And I'm not saying he hasn't fought a lot of tough people, but predominantly he hasn't fought the UFC caliber people that we see, say, Robbie Lawler fight, right? And so what I think is going to happen with Askren is I think he's either going to get 3 takedowns. And I mean, I know this is my catch-22, so I'm bailing on either side. I'm stacking the deck. But if Askren gets the takedown all 3 rounds, then of course he wins. But if he doesn't get the takedown in all 3 rounds, George wins this hands down, and George probably knocks him out in the 3rd round. And that's my pick on that.
Well,
so,
one thing you said there that I do want to comment on is that when it comes to Masvidal, another good thing that he has going for him is a lot of people are gravitating toward his personality. His whole hitting Leon Edwards after the event and him talking beforehand. I mean, it was almost like him and Leon Edwards planned that, because Masvidal talks about, before going into that fight with Till, that he's tired of all the crap talk, and if somebody tries to confront him or whatever, he's firing on them. I mean, and it's like he just gets the biggest knockout of his career against Darren Till in London. And then it's like the other golden boy from London, Leon Edwards, the other Brit. It's like the red carpet was just rolled out to him. Like, oh, well, now I'm going to come and confront you and start talking crap to you live on TV during your interview, just coincidentally. And then he goes up and actually fires on him. It's like, could it have worked out any better to make him a superstar? I mean, it had to have. And then when we look at these, what's going on right now at welterweight, Kamaru Usman is out for a little bit. So Colby Covington got tired of waiting. Colby's fighting Lawler in August. We all assumed Colby Covington was next in line for Usman. But, they don't seem in too big of a rush to make Usman and Covington. And Covington's about to fight, and who knows how that fight turns out. The winner of this could be, when it comes to timing and just who's going to be healthy when Usman returns, the winner of this could get Usman. And I think that if he goes in there and he gets a devastating finish over Ben, the fight with Masvidal would be something to sell for sure. And I think it's possible. And I definitely think the Askren fight with him being Woodley's teammate and his undefeated record and being champion everywhere else, his persona, he could get the fight too with Usman. So, and that would actually be a tough fight for Usman, because I'm not sure Usman can just go in there and ragdoll Ben Askren.
Agreed.
So this is an interesting fight. It's a pivotal fight. And I'm with you, Miguel. You gave me chills when you were talking about you can't lose this one, George. It's the one you have to win because I want him to win. I want him to go get that title. I think it'd be awesome because he's a fighter's fighter.
Yeah, that he is. George is straight from the streets. You know, they call him game bred for a reason. And when you meet him and you know him and you're around him and you see how he interacts with people, he has that charismatic style about him that, you know, men want to be him and women want him. And that's just an absolute fact. People gravitate towards him on a style that they don't gravitate towards Ben Askren. There's nobody out there going, Ben Askren's a real sex symbol, and I want to be the next Ben Askren. You know, that funky Ben and all that. Nobody's doing that. But there's a lot of guys that could hang out with George Masvidal and say they start talking like George, acting like George, walking like George, dressing like George, because he is that cool to be around. So let's go on down. Miguel, take us to the next one.
All right, up next you got the debut of Luke Rockhold at light heavyweight, and he's coming in at 205, and he's facing John Blachowicz, the aforementioned John Blachowicz. He's going to come in as a favorite, but, you know, with Rockhold, the story is this, you know, I mean, if you can tap him, he's going to go out, and he's still talking a big game, and, you know, he's still out there challenging John Jones and stuff like that. And, I mean, Rockhold still has some, you know, physical ability that makes him threatening and stuff like that. But his, you know, his little bugaboo has been exposed, so to speak. So he's taking a big step back. At 205 pounds, we'll see. He was huge at middleweight. So I suspect he'll make a good transition to 205. I don't think he's going to be out of his neighborhood here. You know, he's a guy that, I don't know, you know, the cockiness sometimes, you know, with George, it comes across as cool. With Rockhold, not cool. You know, I don't like him, never really have. And, you know, if he were to get knocked out here, I wouldn't mind it. But Blachowicz is a guy the UFC hasn't exactly matchmade, you know, kindly for. And, you know, this may be another situation here where, you know, he's got a tall order.
Let me ask you this, Devin, do you feel like in some ways Rockhold has been the guy that's lived an entitled life, and he came in here and he exudes entitledness, and because of that, people want to see him get his ass kicked, and so he wins one, and then he loses two, and then he wins one again, and he loses two, and the UFC's kind of playing, you know, kind of a cat with a mouse kind of thing with him. Do you agree with that?
Some of what you just said. I mean, I will say this. There's never been a fighter in the UFC I've disliked more than Ronda Rousey, but number two is Luke Rockhold. I mean, if there's one word that describes the man, it's one of the ugliest four-letter words in my opinion. It's just smug. That is one of the smug. I mean, if there was a image definition of smug in the dictionary, it would be Luke Rockhold. He is so unbearable, and even in his interviews he's disrespectful. I just don't care for him. Or maybe that's just his personality. He might be a great, wonderful guy.
Maybe he's a great guy, but he looks like an American James Bond to me.
Yeah, but one thing about him is he was a beast in Strikeforce. I remember when he was the Strikeforce champion there and he beat Jacare. I remember saying at the time, because Anderson Silva was still the champion, I was like, man, that's a dream crossover fight right there, would be Rockhold and Silva. Well, Rockhold comes to the UFC, and they get him matched up with TRT, jacked up, freakish Vitor in his first fight, who goes in and spinning wheel kicks his head almost completely off into the front row, which was just great. I mean, I remember.
Whoops.
I didn't even care. I always wondered if the UFC did that intentionally just to beat the Strikeforce champ. Like, let's throw him in there.
Oh, of course they did that. Dana was like, let's make sure we know let's make sure we let Strikeforce know who's the best.
Yeah, who's boss here? We're gonna put him in there with this jacked up, mean Vitor.
See, that brings me back to this question, though. Sorry to interrupt, but it brings me back. I have to interrupt on this because it brings me back to the idea that Ben Askren is that same character. He's smug, he's cocky. The only difference is I think Ben is a really good ticket seller. And so when you put asses in buckets, that's a whole different process. And so they're going to let him get away with more, but they're going to make him prove himself every step of the way. I mean, setting him in there with Robbie Lawler, Jesus Christ, when Lawler hit him and then slammed him, man, I thought the guy was dead. I really did. Like Miguel said, I couldn't believe he was still conscious.
There's no easy entries into the UFC, that's for sure, especially for champions from other organizations. If you come in as a former champion, they're gonna put you in there with a steep test on your first entry. But after he gets knocked out by TRT Vitor, which you got to kind of give him an excuse for that, because I mean anybody who's seen Vitor not on TRT and Vitor, they're like two completely different people. Well, then he goes and he beats Michael Bisping. People forget that he actually just ran through Michael Bisping the first time they fought. He ends up in a middleweight title fight with Weidman and goes in there and wins the fight with Weidman, takes the belt. So at this point, you're looking at a guy who was dominant in Strikeforce, who was probably the number 2 middleweight in the world next to Anderson Silva. They were just in different organizations. He comes in. Now he's beat Weidman. He is the champion.
Devin, let me interrupt again. Was Weidman good enough to really be considered that big of a victory with the benefit of hindsight?
Well, at the time, he was the Brazil. I mean, he had beat Anderson twice. He had beat Machida, and he had beat Vitor, and he was undefeated. So that's all we really knew, is that he was winning and dominating.
True enough.
And Luke goes in there and beats his ass and gets him out of there in the 3rd round. Then Luke gets a last-minute replacement because it's crazy that it's slipping my mind, but I'm thinking it was Romero, but I'm not 100% sure. I think it was Romero is who originally fell out of that title fight with Luke Rockhold, and Bisping takes it on short notice. And Rockhold went in there with some smug attitude and overconfident and paid the price, getting knocked out in the 1st round.
Yep.
And Rockhold, on several interviews with Helwani, blamed himself for what happened in the middleweight division after that. Because if you guys remember, then we went on this ride of Bisping versus GSP and faking injuries and dodging fights with Romero and Whitaker and interim titles with Romero and Whitaker when they were clearly the top guys, and GSP winning and vacating the belt like the next week. And here Rockhold's injured all the time. Well, Rockhold gets a win over David Branch, dominates him, and then he gets matched up with Yoel Romero and gets knocked out in the 3rd round. So when we look at his reign since Strikeforce, it's not been pretty, but it's been like you said, kind of loss win. But you kind of got 2 wins in there. The second Bisping fight against a guy that he really should have beat. I mean, he's a far better fighter than Michael Bisping ever was. And the first loss that he lost in the UFC was against a jacked up Vitor. And then the other one was freaking Yoel Romero, which there's no shame in that. So this guy
murderers row.
Elite. And keep in mind, this guy's trained with Khabib, Daniel Cormier, all these elite guys over there at AKA. And Crazy Bob has openly said that he's never met a fighter more talented than Luke Rockhold. And they support him talking about Jon Jones, knowing that his teammate, Daniel Cormier, fought him. I think he will, and we've also seen guys move up in weight and take some time off and be better.
And do better. A lot better.
I think, and he's a tall guy, I think he'll be better at light heavyweight than what Weidman will be. So, I think
Miguel, do you guys think that he's going to pass the drug test? He's got to put the weight on. He's got to put the muscle on. He's a thin guy.
I think he was an extreme. No, I think he was an extreme cutter.
Okay.
I think he was an extreme cutter. I think he'll be fine. I think he probably walks around like most heavyweights, 225, 230.
There's been reports of that. Yeah, he's huge. It's amazing he even made that weight at 85. He's probably going to look massive.
I'm interested to see it. Miguel, do you have anything else on this one before we step down to the one that I'm really excited about?
Yeah, let's talk Diego.
Devin, go first, man. I want to tell you guys a story first. It was 2005. We were in Abu Dhabi. Was in California. Miguel brought me in to work Abu Dhabi, and that was absolutely the greatest time in MMA history for me. That was the most amazing time in my life. From driving around with Big John and to everything about it. Boss Rudin. I told Boss Rudin he had a nice fat dick. Thank you, Marlouse, for that. Marlouse, where's my Marlouse? That's for you. You dirty fucking Duchess. I love you, baby. So, Marlouse told me, oh, I'm going to teach you some Dutch for Boss Rudin. Anyways, back to the story. I picked up Diego at the airport, right? And, of course, now Diego is this huge superstar all of a sudden.
I'll interrupt you just really fast, say that we're talking about Diego Sanchez, who's fighting Michael Chiesa this week. So continue. Go ahead.
Yeah. So Diego Sanchez is a huge superstar all of a sudden. He's the pit bull. He wasn't even the nightmare back then. And, he's doing the meditation and, he winds up just destroying people that no one thought he would win. He had these wailing punches and stuff. He had like sloping shoulders. He didn't have that imposing look. Chris Lieben was on that show. And that's where the MMA boom came from. And I pull over to pick him up at LAX, and Sanchez gets in the van, and I go, and I get ready to go around and like open the door for him, because he's a superstar and all that. And I'm trying to do my part. And Diego's like, bro, I'll get my own door. Thank you, though. And that's the kind of guy he is. And he talked my ear off for an hour and a half in 5 o'clock traffic, trying to get back to the hotel. And he never took a breath. I think that he has. And then there's this other side of him when he gets in the ring and he gets hit, where he just, something is different about that man. And, if he wasn't an MMA fighter, and no disrespect to him, but maybe he'd be a serial killer or like, an assassin or something, because he's born to fucking hurt people. And he's fantastic. And he's one of the most entertaining fighters that the UFC has ever had. And I just wanted to start out with saying that. Sorry, go ahead, guys. Talk about it. And I love Michael too. I can't wait for this fight. This is the fight that I really want to see.
Hear this out. April of 2005 was the finale of the first Ultimate Fighter season. April of 2005. Here are the first 4 seasons of the Ultimate Fighter. They're the winners and the runner-ups. Because remember, a lot of them had 2 weight classes. So
yes.
The first season winners was Diego Sanchez and Forrest Griffin. Runner-ups, Kenny Florian and Stephan Bonner. Keep in mind, from that same season came Josh Koscheck, Chris Lieben. Several different names came out of that season. You go into season 2, you had Joe Stevenson.
Keith Jardine, he was in there, the actor now.
You in the second season, you had Joe Stevenson and Rashad Evans, Luke Kumo, and Brad Imes. Third season, you had Kendall Grove, Michael Bisping, Ed Herman, Josh Haynes. Fourth season, Matt Serra, Travis Luter, Chris Lytle, Patrick Cote. Not until the 5th season, when you get to Nate Diaz winning, do you find a lot of recognizable names there, but there's only one guy that's still standing.
That's right.
And Diego Sanchez. He's still around. All the rest of them have went on to.
Well, Diaz.
What? Well, I said not until you get to season 5 of.
Oh, okay. I see what you're saying. Yeah.
And, but we're talking about season 1. 14 years in the UFC, and they just
and not an easy fight. There's no such thing as an easy fight for the guy.
No, I mean they just inaugurated him and Clay Guida's fight to the Hall of Fame, and you could have done that with the Carl Parisian fight. You could have done that with the Nick Diaz fight. You could have done that with the Gilbert Melendez fight. You could have done that with the BJ Penn fight even.
Hey, does he win greatest cut of all time, or does that go to Marvin
Eastman. Yeah.
Eastman's got the greatest cut, right?
Yeah,
but Diego's second.
Yeah, that was. I also think BJ Penn's greatest performance. Also, that was at BJ Penn's height of his career.
Okay, so I got totally off track. Take us into the fight, because this is actually going to be a barn burner, fantastic fight. I can't even believe the UFC is. I mean, I hate to tell them this, but yeah, this is the fight that I'll pay pay-per-view on. If everything else is streaming, I'll still pay-per-view this.
I'm not 100% sold on Chiesa, not because he doesn't have the skills. He's a great fight. I mean, he's got great grappling skills.
Yeah.
He is somebody that comes out strong. We've seen him pacing the cage before the fights and stuff. And he sometimes gets a little bit too worked up, I feel like. I mean, the Kevin Lee fight, he was doing good in, but then Kevin Lee got him mounted up. It was a controversial finish and all that. The Anthony Pettis fight was the fight that I think kind of stands out to me, not because Pettis and Sanchez fight anything similar. It's that I saw Chiesa kind of start fading in the Pettis fight, and Pettis was able to make him pay, hurt him a little bit, slow him down a little bit, and Chiesa's kind of showed if he does get slowed down a little bit, he's vulnerable. Diego Sanchez doesn't slow down, even at 38, 39 years old. Diego's gonna continue to press the pace. I think this is a good fight. I do think that Chiesa has the size and youth in his favor, so I think he is the favorite. Diego, I think, is just he's got a lot of miles on him that Chiesa doesn't. And I think it's going to be a primarily grappling fight. But, man, I'd like to see Diego win this. I'd really like to see Diego go in there and get another win. He'd be on a 3-5.
Miguel, if Diego wins this, what happens to him? Where does he go?
Well, Damian Maia called him out.
I mean, does that fight happen?
I don't know, but it makes sense. You know, you got guys that are, you don't want to tell Diego, hey, you won 2 in a row, go fight Khabib, or something like that. So
yeah,
it's almost a little bit like you're starting to head towards the Bellator geriatric league. I'm all right with 40-year-olds fighting 40-year-olds if they still are on the level of Maia and Diego Sanchez. It'll still be a compelling fight. I wouldn't put him in with young killers or anything like that at this point. Maia's looking for one last fight, and he called out Diego Sanchez, so he's got just that in mind.
Wow. Well, that's interesting, and I hope that fight doesn't happen. There's a lot of different fights I'd rather see, but whatever comes of it, what are you guys going to pick on this? Who are you calling?
I'm going to call Chiesa by decision, unfortunately.
Miguel?
Yeah, I'll go with the heart. I'll take Diego.
I'm going to take Chiesa, and I'm going to say that I'm going to say he submits him. The guy's ground game is pretty phenomenal. The only thing that would stop that is if there's a lot of blood, which in Diego fights we always know there's a lot of blood.
I think Diego will get bloody if it's going to be a stop. I don't think he submits him.
I don't know. I just think Chiesa. I think it's his time. I think
Diego's ground game is better than Chiesa's.
I don't argue that his grappling is better, but I don't think his submission skills are anywhere near that. Chiesa's got some pretty bizarre submission stuff that you just don't see very often, and I think he's kind of a new breed, and I really like watching him. But I don't doubt anything anybody's saying about it. I think this is anybody's fight, and I hope Diego wins. I really do. I love the guy, and Diego, please come on the show. Come and see us. We love you, man. We miss you. Okay, so anything else you guys want to cover before we wrap this one up? Then we've gone pretty long tonight on this one.
I'm gonna get this transferred over to YouTube, and I've been putting out a lot of short stuff, and I do think we need to do something. This is such a big card. It's International Fight Week. I think we need to come back. On the day of the fight and do kind of a last minute just review. I
would also call both of you guys out and have a discussion about you guys can take your Greg Jackson and John Winklejohn, and I'll take my Matt Hume any day of the week. Thank you.
Whoa! Oh no, that's not even really fair. You really can't even put that in the same. Okay.
No, I can tell you this. Winklejohn and Greg Jackson have a great reputation. I think the question is much more complicated than that because it comes down to at some point the fighter and the trainer have to have a personal relationship, and if that's not working out, you could be as happy with the greatest trainer as you want, but if you're not connected to him, it isn't going to lie. I'd have to see if he fought for a UFC title, but I've been told by a UFC veteran that he wouldn't go near Greg Jackson. Greg Jackson never fought before.
I think you both are.
That was his opinion. So I think if that personal connection's not there, even Matt Hume, who would be my choice, won't work for you if you don't appreciate his style or you're not buying into what it is. So it's a very complicated question, but it'll be a fun discussion.
I think you both are missing it. Romero, Covington, Masvidal, Dustin Poirier. It's ATT down there in Fort Lauderdale.
Well, I mean, I'm definitely biased to that. I mean,
here's the problem: I'm building under. Do you give Ricardo Liborio credit, or are you giving Dean Thomas credit for Tyrone Woodley? Or there's just too many. You can't just say ATT because it's not a guy.
Yeah, because it's not one person. I mean, you got Pena Pena. He's marching in people constantly. They usually send him to Australia now because I don't think anybody else wants to go anymore. And so somehow Marcos D'Amatis gets pushed into that, I guess. But yeah, Ricardo Liborio is ATT. But I mean, do you see him in anybody's corner anymore? Conan Silveira is in all the corners in the UFC in the US. So is he the guy that's really training them, or is he just working corners? That's a whole different mess. And I don't disagree with you, ATT Nation. I love it. I love ATT. And
one man to train you for a fight. I'll take Matt Hume. Thank you very much.
I would agree.
I would still take Greg Jackson on that, and I'll tell you why.
On that list too.
Who's that?
Zahabi's on that list too.
Yeah, I don't deny that one either. But here's why I take Greg Jackson. Greg Jackson has a specific way of relating to almost any fighter that will listen to him, whereas Matt Hume he's going to be, you're doing it this way. This is the way we're going to do it, and this is what's going to work. Because the guy's a genius. They don't call him the wizard for nothing. So I mean, I don't disagree that Matt Hume is fantastic. He's amazing. And obviously look what he did with DJ. But I don't know. That's pretty hard to say because Jackson's got an awful lot of belts on his wall.
This is a little bit off of subject, but just to close with this, because we got a couple months before we're going to be talking a lot about this fight coming up. But man, Masvidal's interview with Joe Rogan when they were talking about ATT down there in Florida, they talked an awful lot about old DP that he was calling him, Dustin Poirier. And Masvidal was saying since he hit his stride at some point in his career and credited the weight moving up in weight.
Yep.
He said he kept calling him DP. He's like, DP is mean. He's like, that boy knocks people out in the gym all the time. He's like anybody who discredits Dustin Poirier right now will do so at their own. Well, that boy's going to be ready.
I think what we're seeing is we're seeing a whole bunch of fighters realize what, and I know I've said this before, so it's a broken record, but I think we're seeing them realize what Chris Lytle has known all along, was that if you just stay in your lane and you don't try and drop 30 pounds, that you can fight 3 rounds or 5 rounds or whatever you need to do, and you can fight hard, and you can fight your game, and you can stay fresh, and you can have a longer career that way, that rather than cutting. Because when you're cutting weight, that's extremely hard on the body. It's exhausting, and it mentally breaks a fighter after a while. They just don't want to do it anymore. It's like, oh, I get a cheat day, so I get to eat 2 chicken breasts dry instead of 1. I mean, Man, I've been there. That shit sucks. And cutting weight sucks. And when a guy can feel good going into the ring because all he had to do was train, it makes an awfully big difference. I mean, pounds, fine, but cutting 30 pounds is a big difference.
Here's a question I have for both of you guys before we sign off.
Okay.
Who has the best chance of pulling off the upset? Santos over Jones, Edgar over Holloway, or Poirier over Khabib? That's a hard one. Who has the best chance of pulling off the upset of those three?
Holmes over Nunes.
Well, I didn't even count those. Edgar over Holloway, Poirier over Khabib, or Santos over Jones? Which one?
Poirier over Khabib.
I think the Raiders can win the Super Bowl.
I think Edgar has the better chance of beating Holloway because we've never really seen him against a real, true wrestler like that.
A really short, stocky wrestler. Yeah,
Dude, I'm not sleeping on Dustin Poirier, though. I'm really not. I'm becoming more and more convinced from what I'm hearing from his gym. But that's down the line. None of us think that Jones is going to lose. I don't think so.
Yeah, well, we all kind of hope so, though, right? So
yeah. That'd be
isn't that something?
I want to see Johnny Walker get up in there. So
I think you're crazy on that one, but I want to see what happens with that. He's exciting, he's interesting, but I just can't see him. I don't know. Who knows with the new training systems they've got out there? You know, they can take a guy who's talented and say he's talented. Give us 8 months with him, and we'll turn him into, and give us the right fights, right management, and yeah, we'll turn this guy into a superstar who's actually taking souls. And so you may be right on that, but I don't buy him. I don't see it in him. But hey, anyways, this is Cadillac. That's Miguel Iterati. The guy there on the end is Devin Miller, and this has been the CRP, and we're talking about UFC 239 fight week in Las Vegas. It's going to be crazy. We've got the 4th of July, and then right after that, July 6th, Saturday night, everybody's going to be banging. We need to probably do it. We probably need to do a prelim card on this, guys, and talk about this tomorrow. If we get time, let's sit down and do a prelim.
Sounds good.
All right. Until next time, namaste.